1032, we have 44 people. Let's just get started. So this is brand new, this annual new member review for the county plan employers. What we're doing is instead of testing the new members in each employer audit, we're pulling that test out and we are going to do it yearly. So if you have a county plan employer audit, what we typically do is a kickoff meeting that just gives you some education, and tells you what to look for. I know that Caitlin has already started this, so some of you maybe have already received your review. This will be helpful even if you've already received the review, but this will also help those of you that haven't, and then it provides you some guidance along the way. So you can see on this first slide, this is just the individuals that are in our internal audit team. Caitlin's name is highlighted because she's the one that she will be contacting you for this. So let's first go over what to expect for this. The first thing that we want to do is ensure timely reviews of all incoming members across all county plan employers. Remember that not all county plan employers are actual counties. We do have some other employers. So employers such as Stern Museum or Western Nebraska Airport, different public health departments or hospitals are also part of your county plan. It will decrease the amount of time that we spend during the full county plan employer audit. So when we pull that test out, that's just one less thing that we have to test. Your county plan employer audits are scheduled every 5 years, so you will still receive a full audit that's going to look at everything else. So your non-contributing employees, payroll tests, different things like that. But this is going to help us across the board, especially as far as education and if there's law changes. What we will be testing, we're looking for the timely enrollment for eligible members. So if they are eligible, making sure that you understand when they need to be enrolled and that they are enrolled when they should be. Along with just eligibility of members. Are they lawfully present? Should they be enrolled in the plan? What about the current county plan participation or past county plan participation? Those are huge audit points when we audit the county plan, the full audit that we do. And so we want to touch base on those annually and make sure that everybody understands what that looks like. Classification, if they're permanent or temporary. Temporary, they are not eligible to be in the plan unless they're part of the current cross county plan participation. So we're going to be looking at classification and then the status, full-time and part-time, and then enrollment type, voluntary or mandatory. To get started, you will receive an email notifying you that you are under review. It's going to request the hire dates, the classification, the status, the enrollment type, and the documentation to support lawful presence if not a U.S. citizen. This email is going to come from Audit Board. Audit Board is what Internal Audit and NPERS uses for all audits across the board. So it's going to look a little different, and we'll go over what that email is going to look like, especially making sure, all of our emails that are coming in, they're from valid sources. The links are clickable. It's not spam. So we want to show you what this is going to look like. After the initiation of it, you might have some follow-up questions that you need to answer. And then at the end, if there's any findings, we'll have to resolve those through action plans. And that's all going to be done through Audit Board as well. Here's what your email is going to look like. Obviously, this says school new member review, and yours will be county. But at the top, you see the Audit Board no reply. Right? We want you to know that is us. That is where this email is coming from. There's going to be a task. So it's an embedded link within that email. And you're going to need to click on that task, and that'll walk you through what you need to do. When you're going through the review, though, if you are tagged in a comment, so within Audit Board, it's just that platform that we can communicate instead of emails. You're going to see that in the email, and you can simply just reply to the email, and that will get us the communication. When you get into the task, this is what it's going to look like. And again, Erin, you jump in if I'm not explaining things exactly for Audit Board here, or if it needs some clarification. And again, yours will say county new member review, but it's just going to ask you specific questions within the task. You'll see the highlighted comments. You can comment in there, and that will get back to the auditor. So that will be your means of communication. At the bottom there where you see that highlight, that's where you're going to drop in any of the documentation that you need to support either lawful presence or why somebody was eligible and enrolled. And then at the end, once you're all completed, there's that submit button, and you'll just hit that submit button. If you have any questions though, don't hesitate to reach out and ask. So like I said, when we initiate an audit, the first thing we do is provide some education. The state auditors audit NPERS once a year for the county plan. And when they do that, they reach out to the employers and they see if people are eligible, timely enrolled, all of those sorts of things. When they do that and a county has done something wrong, maybe enrolled somebody when they shouldn't have been enrolled or not enrolled somebody when they should have been enrolled, it actually becomes an NPERS audit point. So we view our audits a little differently. We like to make sure that we provide as much education as we can. And we use these audits to make sure that this is like your one-on-one time, right? So if you have situations that are unique to your employer, your county, and you want to talk those through, this is when we do that. So this part of the webinar is just going to go over that bare minimum determining eligibility in the county plan and how we do that. There are several tools on our website that you can use to do that. This retirement plan eligibility checklist, I will actually show you that on the next slide, but that's one of the best resources that you can have. We've had that for a couple of years now. It's a printable PDF, so you can fill it out online, save it to your desktop in a folder, you can print it out. Always, we suggest that you go over it with your member or with the employee. It's not mandatory, but it does help you walk through every question that we would have to determine eligibility. And then at the end, it also serves as that documentation, right? So if you are ever questioned by the state auditors or NPERS or the member as to why or why not they were enrolled into the plan, you have this to support. Well, these are the questions that were answered, and then this is how they answered it, and this is where we got as far as eligibility. There is a county retirement plan eligibility video on your website. So if you are not familiar with the NPERS website and the county plan, very easy to navigate. Our Ed Services, which is who Heather is with, right? They have a YouTube channel, and so you can find videos for everything on there. But there is one specifically. There hasn't been any real big changes to the county plan eligibility. That video was made a while ago, but it is still true to this day. So you can go on there, you can watch the video if you have some questions. This video also will be posted to the website as well. And that third one, that county plan employer manual, that is your go-to. If you have a question for anything eligibility-wise, anything else, that is your one-stop shop. That table of contents is clickable. It takes you directly to the page that you need to look at. If you ever have a question and you look at that manual and you think, well, this manual didn't answer something, let us know. Those we review every single year. So if there is something that we need to add, maybe there was a law change and we don't have it clarified exactly how you think it would make sense or anything like that, let us know. And then you always have your NPERS contacts, right? Sarah Westewald is your contact here at NPERS for county employer reporting. And the audit team is always here as well. You can always call our member services for different things as well. So here is that county plan eligibility checklist. It's small here. I know you can't see a lot of it, but this first half where you don't see any boxes, it is just giving you the terms that retirement uses based on statute. And then all of the questions from here on out are just a yes or no. And then it directs you to what question you need to go to next. So again, my suggestion is to use this tool every single time you have a new employee. You have documentation then to support for you why you did or did not enroll them in the plan. So let's just go over some rules for eligibility. The first thing that we see a lot in the county plan is that people will say, well, I didn't enroll them right away because they didn't fill out the forms. So if an employee is mandatory to be enrolled into the plan, there is no form to fill out. You just have to start contributions when you need to start contributions. It's the first thing you need to know. They need to be 18 years or older, and then they need to be a US citizen or lawfully present. What does lawfully present mean? So the first thing that you need to do is establish, why are they in the United States? What status are they at when they're in the United States? Code 33, which is DACA, they are receiving deferred action. They are the only status that is not eligible. So once you see their documentation to support why they are in the United States, if they are not C33, they are eligible to be in the plan as long as they meet all the other requirements. But their status in the United States is an eligible status. So then you just need to make sure that you have one document, and that is listed. You can find that on that eligibility checklist. There's a link directly to the website. And really it comes down to whatever document they gave you to show what status they are in is probably a document listed on there, but it could just be a driver's license as well, something as similar as that. Now there was a change, there was a bill that was passed, 295, and so it was implemented into statute this year, and so that is on here. It's not a big deal. It just adds the addition of the learner's permit, but then also if there is a document that is expired, but it is extended by U.S. Department of Homeland Security or U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, then it would be an allowed document. If you have any questions, though, just ask. So county plan eligibility, when we look at cross and prior plan participation, can get a little tricky. These next couple of slides are just going to walk you through some situations on what you ask, right? These questions, again, are all on that eligibility checklist. So the things I'm going through on this slide, if you use that checklist, it's going to direct you to the correct question based on how you answered. So when you first have a new employee, you have to ask them, are you currently participating in the county plan through another county plan employer? Again, remember, just because somebody is not at another county does not mean that they're not participating in the plan, right? There are other county plan employers that they could be participating through. So if the answer is yes, then you must immediately start contributing regardless of what position they're doing. It doesn't matter if they're permanent or temporary, doesn't matter if they're full-time or part-time. If they are already contributing in the plan, and you hire them, they have to contribute at your employer. So then we go to scenario number 2. When you ask them if they're already participating in the county plan through another county plan employer and they say no, then you have to establish if they have participated in the county plan in the last 120 days at any county plan employer, right? So that's that cross. Are they currently participating, or that prior? Have you participated in the past? The county plan is a multiple employer plan. So once you are in the plan, you are in the plan. To stop contributions in the plan and or take a distribution from the plan, you have to have a 120-day separation period. So if someone was contributing in the plan last week and they went to a different county plan employer the next week as a temporary employee, since they were just contributing in the plan within 120 days, you would need to immediately start contributing regardless of employment classification. It's going to get a little trickier. Again, I want to highlight that eligibility checklist. If you use that, it walks you through all these questions. Okay, so we again go back to, are you currently participating in the county plan? And they say no. Then you have to ask if they've participated within the last 20 days, and they say no. Then you have to ask, have you ever participated in the county plan through any county plan employer? If they say yes, even if it was 10 years ago and you hire them today, if you hire them as a permanent employee, they have to start contributions. So the employer, you have to have a process for how you're going to establish cross and prior plan participation, right? Are you currently participating? Has it been 120 days since you stopped participating? And then have you ever participated if you're hiring them as a permanent employee? Okay, here's the next scenario. So now we ask them, are you currently participating? And they say no. We ask them if they've ever contributed, and they said no. Then you start the eligibility process based on employment classification. So now what does that mean? Employment classification is, are they permanent or are they temporary? Here's the kicker on this, and it makes it easy sometimes and harder other times. Temporary is not defined in statute for the county plan. So you as the county employer have to define temporary. What does that mean at your employer? You must be able to articulate and provide documentation to support why they are classified as temporary instead of permanent. We have audited counties in the past that label employees as temporary for 15 years. How do you support they are temporary employee when they've been there for 15 years? So again, no definition, nothing that we can say statute says X, so we're comparing it with that. It's how do you as the employer define temporary, and what documentation do you have to support that that's how you define it temporary? And then further, what documentation do you have to support they are a temporary employee? What we go by, and this has actually been stemmed from the state auditors, is the state auditors look at 1 year. So if the employee has rendered service for more than 1 year, was there a termination rehire process? Is there some reason why after they've been there a year, they're still labeled temporary? So that's the documentation that we will be asking for. Permanent employee is any employee employed on a permanent basis, right? All of your elected officials and elected officers. This does not include judges. This is probably one of the biggest things that we would need you to be able to define. Now let's look at eligibility for seasonal or on-call employment. This is another big thing that we see in the employer audits, is we have to use definitions and terms based on retirement. So when we say, are they temporary or permanent, a lot of times we get back they're seasonal or on-call. Seasonal or on-call is not a classification for retirement purposes. So we need to define, are they seasonal, temporary, or permanent? Seasonal. Which one are they? And the guidance we give is that if they're temporary seasonal or temporary on-call, they're hired on a one-season basis with no prearrangement or understanding the employee will return to employment the next season. They should typically need to reapply for that position. There's a clear termination rehiring process. But if they're hired with the intent that the employee will return to employment in the subsequent working seasons without having to reapply, or there's no end date for the employee and employer relationship, then that would typically be a permanent seasonal or on-call. So back to eligibility. If we are looking at a permanent employee, and we've already asked and answered all of the questions for the cross and the prior county plan participation. Okay, so this is if we are looking at somebody that is not currently in, they've not been in the last 120 days, and they've never been in. Now we're on to the next question. If they're a permanent employee, what are the intention of hours that they are going to be working? So if the intention of hours is full-time, and that's described in statute as 1/2 or more of the regularly scheduled hours, then immediate mandatory enrollment is required. So again, you have somebody that has said no to cross or prior plan participation. You hire them to work 1/2 or more of the regularly scheduled hours for that position, then you must immediately enroll them. That's the mandatory participation. If they are working less than 1/2 of the regularly scheduled hours, that means they're part-time for retirement purposes. And then you need to monitor all hours worked. There is no mandatory participation. You enroll them if they work half or more of the regularly scheduled hours in 3 monthly payroll periods, or 6 biweekly pay periods, or 6 semi-monthly pay periods. They don't have to be consecutive, and that's in a calendar year. So from January to December, depending on what your payroll periods are, because everybody has different ones, right? So if they meet, it's essentially 3 months, but 3 monthly, 6 biweekly, 6 semi-monthly. They meet 3 of those, 6 biweekly, 6 semi-monthly. Want to make sure, that's pretty confusing. Then they go in the next payroll period. We kind of already went over this one, so I think I will let the full-time part go. The one thing we didn't hit on, and this is the last thing that is really, really important that you hear, because this is the other major audit finding that we have for county plan employers, is if you establish that they are less than 1/2 of the full-time equivalency for that job classification, they can voluntarily enroll by submitting a voluntary form to NPERS within 30 days of hire, okay? So mandatory is full-time, which is half or more, which sometimes can be 20 hours, right? But that's full-time for retirement purposes. For part-time, less than 1/2 of the hours for the full-time equivalency for that position, they can voluntarily enroll. This form needs to be filled out and signed by the member and by the employer and back to NPERS within 30 days of hire or classification change. So if you have somebody that is a temporary hire and then they decide to come on as a part-time permanent hire, it's 30 days of that classification change, or 30 days of hire from the permanent part-time. Oh, I do just want to hit on this. I've been looking at the time. I want to make sure I'm really cognizant of the time and I don't keep everybody for too long here. That is the other thing. So temporary classification is up to the county to say, right? You need to provide who you deem as temporary and why, that documentation. Those regularly scheduled hours is also up to the county plan employer to decide and report. So we will ask you, what are the regularly scheduled hours for this position? If the regularly scheduled hours for this position is 20, then half or more is 10 or more, and they are full-time at 10, right? So that is up to the county to let us know what those hours are. Here is the state county cash balance voluntary enrollment form. Again, remember, it's not a big form. There's not a lot of information on there, but it is our way to know that this employee chooses to be a member with NPERS. It needs to be received by NPERS within 30 days. If it is not, they are ineligible to participate and we have to remove them from the plan. So that's the last big thing. I want to thank all of you today. 47 still remained on this webinar. That is great. I think that's maybe even what we started with. That's all I have. I have 5 minutes. If anybody has any questions over anything, go ahead. Looks like maybe there's not any questions already. Any questions, let me know. Again, just to remind anybody that came in late in the chat, there should be links to several of the things, the manual, the eligibility checklist, the makeup contribution form should be in there. That form has changed and looks a little different, right? If you have makeup contributions, it's the employer that we need to receive that money from, and it's the employer that we need to receive that form from. The voluntary form, new member packet is in there. I will send out an email with the PowerPoint as soon as this is over, so everybody has that, and that PDF guideline of how to navigate the website. Let's see.
Vanessa, a question came in going back to the 120 days or less, asking if you could review that.
Yeah, Cheryl, I'm thinking you're just talking about the past plan participation. So I'm going to start on that. If that's not what you're talking about, go ahead and add something else in that question and answer, and I will redirect where I'm going with this. So the first thing that you ask somebody is, are you currently participating in the plan? They say, no, I'm not currently participating in the county plan. So then you ask, have you participated in the county plan within the last 120 days? Because if they have participated in the county plan anywhere at any employer in the past 120 days, and they start working at a county plan employer doing anything within 120 days, they must remain in the plan. In order to stop contributions in the county plan, they have to have a 120-day separation from service. So it's at any employer. They could be working at one county term and terminate their position there, come and work for you 100 days later, and it has not been 120 days. Even if you hire them on as a temporary employee, you have to start contributions because it's in that 120 days. If you don't, then it would be make-up contributions for you, the employer, which includes interest, and it's the employee and employer contributions that would need to be make up. Cheryl, did that answer your question? I hope so. I'm not seeing anything else in there. We have a couple more minutes, so if anybody else has any questions regarding anything we've went over, feel free. So if someone worked for a county 5 years ago and were contributing, we go through all new eligibility, not counting prior enrollment. So if someone worked for a county 5 years ago and were contributing, we go through all new. Okay, so so now let's look at the past. And I can stay on later than 11. So if anybody needs me to stay on later than 11, that works for me. But if we are looking at past plan participation, you have to ask, now that we're outside the 120 days, have you ever participated in the county plan? If you are hiring this employee as a permanent employee and they have participated in the plan ever, then you need to start contributions on them. So it doesn't matter then if it's full-time or part-time, you would start contributions on them. Caitlin, was there another question in there?
Didn't unmute. Can you clarify on the F1 or J1 visa and eligibility? Is a student visa that expires in 2026 eligible to contribute? Is one.
Okay, so for the immigration status, for the reason that somebody is in the US, the only status that is not eligible is C33, DACA, deferred action. Okay, so if it's J1, no matter what other status it is, they are eligible for the lawful presence part of the eligibility test. You need to make sure they meet everything else, but for this purpose, let's just assume they meet everything else. C33 is the only status that would not meet eligibility. After you establish what status they are, you need to establish they're lawfully present. To do that, it's just simply looking at the list of documents that we have that's on your website. Erin, can you put that link in there in the chat? I don't know that we did that, the immigration guideline, if you could do that. Know that the eligibility checklist does link you directly to that immigration guideline, but it is on our website separately. So as long as they have one of those documents, then they would be eligible. And truly, it could be a driver's license, or it might even be the document that you looked at to support what their status is.
Vanessa, we got another question asking about what's the difference between 120 days and longer.
Good question, and I apologize if I did not make that clear. The difference between the 120 days or longer is that during the 120 days, it doesn't matter what classification they are when you rehire them. They could be temporary, which is typically an ineligible classification, right? You cannot voluntarily enroll if you are temporary, but if you are currently in the county plan, or if you've been in the county plan within 120 days, if you have contributed in the plan within 120 days, then that temporary status, you would contribute on that temporary status if it's within the 120 days. So outside of the 120 days, they have to be a permanent employee, and then it doesn't matter if it's full-time or part-time. During the 120 days, it doesn't matter if they're permanent or temporary. I hope that helps. Do we have any other questions there, Caitlin?
There was a few in the chat that I answered directly in the chat, but I think they're still good. Heather put in the chat the link to the Military Service Guidebook, so that's a really good resource if you have, I know Cassie put in here that she has someone returning from military leave, so that's a really good resource, so I definitely recommend starting there. And then if there's additional questions or something that doesn't make sense, you can always reach out to NPERS. Another question that came through was if someone is contributing in the school plan and then they're hired by the county, do they have to go into retirement right away? So just remembering that each plan is different and distinct. You have to establish eligibility in the school plan to contribute to that plan. And then even if you're currently employed by a county plan employer too and the school, you still have to establish eligibility in the county plan before enrollment, but also knowing that if they're permanent part-time, they could still voluntarily enroll and contribute to both plans. Another question that came up was if a new hire doesn't know if they've participated in the county plan in the past, how can we find out? And so just addressing that, if you're ever not certain, they're not certain, you want to verify if they're in their 120-day separation period, you want to make sure those dates are right. You can always reach out to NPERS and just get the information if they have previously contributed. If they're in that 120-day separation period, we can get those dates to you. They always can reach out as well. But those look like the only other questions that came through.
All right, perfect. Well, it is 11:04, so, oh, good, Cheryl, I'm glad that makes sense. Good, good. Oh, do we have another one? If someone is part-time but works enough.
If someone is part-time but works enough to meet 1/2 of regularly scheduled hours, do they qualify for 457 DCP?
Yes, the DCP is separate. Yep. Sorry, you were answering all the other ones, Caitlin.
No, that's okay. My brain spaced for a second. I was getting stuck on 457.
All right, it is 11:05. I don't think there's any other questions. Again, we are here if you have questions. Sarah is there if you have questions. Our member services is there if you have questions. I will get out these items so that you have them right away, and Heather's team will post this video up on the website so that you have access to this as well. So thank you all for attending. I really do appreciate that you took the time out of your day. I know that sometimes retirement can be difficult, right? And you do so much in your day and in your job as it is, and retirement is just a small piece of what you do. So just knowing that you're here and you're willing to listen and work with us to make sure that we provide you the best tools that help for you, that's great. We appreciate it. Thank you.